40 Hertz tone. Alright, it's running. But you hear that humming? So the coil itself isn't necessarily broken. I'm going to turn it up some more. That don't sound good at all. Okay. Same sound. Hold the cone still. Don't hear rattling. Since I'm holding the cone still and it's not rattling, that tells me that the coil itself is most likely not unwrapped, because it would still be going in the gap, rattling in the gap. So it narrows down possibilities. You want to check for what's going to be possibly rattling with the speaker externally first, which will be the cone connection to the spider connection to the cone, tensils bouncing against the cone, which in this case I can already see that is not happening. Surround lip disconnected from the cone, cracks on the cone, and that narrows it down a whole lot. There could be something else I'm kind of forgetting, but I'm going to go through all of those right now and see if I can get an external diagnosis and post my next video in one moment. I think I found the culprit. This speaker is unusual in that it uses two spiders, and from your average subwoofers you'll only have one spider as the suspension under the cone. And I think the second spider that's under the top one is disconnected from its glue bond and is bouncing around. That's why when I press down on the cone, it kind of holds it still against where it mounts, and when I pull the cone up, it raises it up from where it mounts, so it's not rattling. That really sounds like what it is. So it's not exactly the coil itself that has burned out or anything, but I'm going to have to get down to it and redo it anyways, because this speaker, I didn't tell you at first, but I've already refixed this in the past. And the wreck just, I mean, it had to have been the wreck when it had hit it. It threw all the momentum and pulled the coil over, pulled the cone over, the suspension, and the part of the suspension I glued down originally has came undone since that had happened. It may have already had loosened too, because I've seen a couple times where the bond I use on the spiders will loosen with time. I mean, it's only as good as a DIY project. This ain't straight from factory, so sometimes there's still going to be problems that exist, but nonetheless, I'm saying it's the secondary spider, and it's time to start pulling this thing apart. Alright, first off, let's see, where's my knife? There we go. You can start with a knife like this with a sharp point, because it helps to get under the lip of the surround, and that's what you want to do. And be careful not to tear the surround. If it's rubber, it can tear. If it's foam, it can tear. Be really careful, but you want to start with a sharp knife. Corrugated, non-corrugated don't really matter as long as you get under the lip. And once you're under there and start to get it pried a little, you can start with like a dull knife that's non-corrugated, or a butter knife. In some cases, a butter knife will actually pull the surround from the cone. It depends whether they glued it with a super glue type of glue or a silicone-based glue, which usually is silicone, especially when using rubber surround. We'll use silicone to bond it. I know in this case I use silicone, so it's going to come apart pretty easy. So just carefully go under the lip, get it removed a little bit, then get you a dull kind of knife that doesn't have such a sharp point, because if you have a little slip, you do not want to cut it. Even a butter knife can work under a lot of cases. So that is the next step. And then get out of the light again. that is going to have to be desoldered. The wires will have to be desoldered, and we'll start having to remove the spider. I'll make one video of removing the spider because it's not easy on this speaker. I remember it from a lot of years ago. You don't forget things like that. So, all right, for now, removing the surround and going to disconnect the tensile wires by desoldering them. It's not a matter of cutting through the glue as much as it is prying it up. Kind of pull it up. And it's a really slow process. I'm making it faster here because the glue I use is not as good as the glues that they use at a factory. They have higher grade. Just want to be careful, especially if it's foam. If it's not foam, you don't have to be as careful, but just don't puncture the rubber. I'm supposed to be using a non-sharp knife here. I was just really careful. So now it's disconnected. And to desolder the terminals, the tensils from the terminals, just going to use a solder gun, heat it up, get some pliers. Let me get this in better light. Okay, get some pliers to hold on to that tensile wire here and pull on it as I'm heating up the solder here. Solder connection. I got it silicone coated, and that's a good idea after you're done redoing it. After the speaker's fixed, to run some silicone on it for flexibility. But it won't be like that from factory most likely, unless it has like a little rubber jacket sleeve over it. If it does, remove it, cut it, whatever, it don't matter. Because if you're into aesthetics so much, you'll just buy a new speaker or get a recone. I don't do these fixes for aesthetics. I do it just to make the speaker run again. So just touch the solder gun to it while it's heating up, pull with pliers, and I'll pull it loose from the terminal. See the second spider? Have to get down in it and cut it off as well. I got the cone up right now. It's about to come out. There it is. See, dual spiders. Have two sets of spiders. Here's the voice coil. It'll be a different color on yours probably. This is one I wrapped earlier with a different wire. Like that. Might have even been from the same spool. See where it connected? The second spider down here. It's hard to get to. You must cut it at the outer edge of it, the very outer edge, before the corrugations begin. You can see this is a progressive spider that has smaller corrugations up to larger ones. Same on the top. Okay, so it's apart. Let's say your coil's burned out. You're going to have to unravel it. Just Find the best point to start with. It might already be unwound a little. You can cut the wire from where it runs up the former. Start pulling it apart. Okay, coil's removed. Don't look good, does it? It'll work again. Take really good care if you're going to reconnect with the original wires here. You don't want to bend them. You know what happens when you take a wire and you bend it and bend it and bend it? It'll eventually break. When you're disconnecting, I should have left an annotation. Be really careful not to make a bend to it, because it will eventually make a weak point. With me, I've already did this before, and I don't trust that point anymore from the times I must have messed with it last time. And I'm going to completely remove it. I'm going to run another tensile lead or something. I'll figure out. This is just for me, though. For you, be careful. Run masking tape backwards on it, and sticky side up is what I mean. And it will keep it from holding the wires down. When you pull it back up, it won't bend the wire. You don't want those wires messed with. You're not going to be messing with this area till later. You're only going to mess with this area down. Make sure it's clean. I'm about to clean it off. That's what I got this PVC for. You have it up against the side of it while I'm raking it with a knife, just to make sure all of the former glue, the glue that was holding the coil to the former, it has been removed. Don't indent the former, don't hurt the former, just get the last glue layer off. It should scrape off fairly easily with a corrugated knife. I recommend a corrugated knife for that. One more thing, stuff a piece of cloth down into the middle of the former so that you don't get no little chunks of something going down in there. It'll be rattling later when you put your speaker back together and be wondering why. You may even want to run some tape around it, masking tape, just to create enough of a seal so that nothing gets down under the cone, because this is a double cone on it. There's a cone under this cone.